Northwood developed his approach to talent and achievement through years of working with Grammy Award-winning artists, playing with nationally recognized music ensembles, and performing on the soundtracks to Academy Award-winning movies. As a keynote speaker and banquet specialist, his ideas and techniques have helped major corporations and associations nationwide reach their goals. With his unique blend of philosophy, innovative techniques, and musical entertainment, he is regarded as one of the most original and entertaining speakers in the country.
Techniques. Vision, visualization. People who are talented, people who are able to reach their goals, have a completed idea of what they want before they ever go about trying to achieve it. I think most people believe that visualization is something that you decide to do or not to do. Kind of has a new agey implication connected to it. But the truth is we visualize all the time. For me to leave this stage and walk out that door requires visualization. You cannot execute a single solitary physical movement without it being a thought first. Everything we do in life is a thought first. Therefore, all we do throughout our lives is visualize. What I do is I take this very normal and natural event and bring it to a level where it can be practiced on a daily basis and be made the most use of. But you will visualize. There is no way around it. Let's say I'm a student, and my teacher tells me that in order to get a pretty sound on the violin, the vibrato must be about this wide and about this fast. Now, if I were to do that, I would get something that sounds about like this. Not bad, passable. However, if in my mind I have a completed idea of what beautiful tone is and beautiful phrasing is, and I impose my will and my vision over the instrument, I'll get something that sounds a little more along these lines. Hopefully you heard the difference. Now, if you were to take both of those examples and slow them down and analyze them, you wouldn't find that big of a difference. A few extra wiggles of vibrato, a few extra dynamics. The true difference between those two examples is that one is being felt and the other is not. Can you imagine putting that kind of feeling and that kind of vision and that kind of will and desire into your projects on a daily basis, the results that you would get? Now, goals are tough. Goals are tough. I don't think you can have one foot in, one foot out when trying to reach a goal. I believe you must attack your goals with the whole of who you are in order to get any kind of real results. one of my favorite melodies on my CD, by the way. In case you're interested, this is a 200-year-old violin made in Italy. Whoever made it didn't put their name in it, so I got a really good deal. But it's a good fiddle. And the bow I use is actually made out of carbon fiber. It's not made out of wood. And these bows are actually pretty cheap. I have a lot of very nice, expensive bows, but I use this one because it simply does everything I need it to do perfectly. Unless I make a mistake and then it's the bow's fault. The other thing that's good about this bow is that the frog, which is a square piece here, it holds the horsehairs, the edges are very sharp. And expensive bows have these edges really rounded off. The reason this is much better is that during very long recording sessions, it makes a really good back scratcher. You know, it's very easy to fix problems on the violin. The violin is solid, it's tangible. When I make a mistake, I know what I physically have to do in order to fix that mistake. Problems of the mind are not so easily fixed. How do you get a grip around the mind? How do you practice a thought? Some kind of a focusing technique, is the only way that I know of. Okay, the next thing. The difference between doing the best you can and doing whatever it takes. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the most famous people in the world. And I can tell you that people who are considered to be talented compare themselves to no one. They do what they have to do on their terms, period. And because they are working from this very intimate and open-ended part of who they are, they know the difference between doing the best you can and doing whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, because they have confidence of self. Confidence of self. Self. Self-confidence. People tend to think that confidence is something that you attain by only focusing on the things you do really well. People think if I only focus on the things I do really well, that will give me confidence. The truth is, that is a false sense of confidence. True confidence comes from going down, being an explorer of self, accepting the bad as well as the good, and being in denial about absolutely nothing. Because confidence is knowing. Confidence is not convincing. Confidence is not talking yourself into. Confidence is knowing. If someone comes up to me and says, you know, North, I don't like you because you play the tuba, but I don't like tuba players. Makes no difference how much I trust this person, how much I respect this person, or how much I want to believe this person. That statement cannot hurt me because I know that I don't play the tuba. I know it. Confidence is knowing, not convincing. You are all completely unique. No one is going to think like you. No one is going to assimilate information like you. The pictures that are going on in your mind while I am speaking are unlike anyone else's. You are specialized. You are customized. Therefore, the only person who's really qualified to give you advice about you is you. When you ask someone's advice, the best you're going to get is what that person would do in your situation, not what you would do in that situation. Granted, this does take some level of bravery because if you're wrong, you have no one but yourself to blame. But the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, and the more you'll begin to trust yourself. But great artists, they don't ask a lot of questions. They know who they are. They know what their weaknesses are, and they will do whatever they have to do to overcompensate for those weaknesses. And everybody has weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses. The great ones are not in denial about them. That's the only difference. When I was in high school, I had a best friend. His name was Glenn Katz, an amazing guy. He was valedictorian. He played first clarinet in our orchestra. We had the best high school orchestra in the country at the time. Played saxophone in the jazz band, was in the marching band, all kinds of extra activities. Now, Glenn was blind, had been blind since birth, never had sight. Glenn decided that he was going to have a normal high school experience. So he did what he had to do on his terms, period. He memorized all of the steps to Santa Monica High School so he could get around with very little help. He memorized all of his orchestra music, and when the conductor would change the tempo, the person next to him would tap on his leg so he would know how much to slow down or speed up. In marching band, he tied a string from the front of his waist to the person in front of him, and a string from the back of his waist to the person in back of him. And he was able to keep his spacing correct by feeling the tautness of the string. Glenn did what he had to do on his terms. Glenn knew the difference between doing the best you can and doing whatever it takes. And consistent with the high school experience, he could be a real jerk sometimes also. One night, he confided in me that some of our friends were going to come over and teepee my house that night. So we hatched this great plan where I would get on the roof with a bucket of water and a hose, and when they came over to teepee the house, I would nail them with the water. Well, there was never anyone coming over to teepee my house that night, and I sat on the roof with a bucket of water till 5 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, the next day I walked him into a ditch. Never do that to a blind person. Glenn was very unique. If I had treated him with kid gloves or special in any way, he would have hated it, and he would have hated me for doing it. So eventually he got a full scholarship to go to UCLA. And toward the second year, at the end of the second year at UCLA, the same cancer that took his sight as an infant took his life as an adult. So it was very sad, but in a way I couldn't feel too bad because really he had crammed more living into 21 years than most people do in a lifetime. And I learned a tremendous amount from him as well. For one thing, you could never feel sorry for yourself around Glenn. I mean, he was doing it blind better than everyone else. So you couldn't come over and be lazy and I don't feel like doing this or that. Just didn't fly. But when talking about the difference between doing the best you can and doing whatever it takes, I feel like I have to tell his story because really, he is the epitome of that. How many people have heard of the Mousetrap Sonata? Anybody? By unknown 18th century composer? Maybe a few? Okay, this is the Mousetrap Sonata. want to talk about the nature of change. People who are talented, people who are successful are able to change and adapt as they need to as they approach their goals. We are all in a constant state of change. The world is in a constant stage, the universe is in a constant state of change, so we will also be in a constant state of change. There's no way around it, it's just a matter of whether or not you want to do it the hard way or the easy way. Or I should say the hard way or the less hard way, because change is hard. Change is one of the hardest things you will ever do. Very few things in life are more difficult than making a change. And I don't say this to depress anybody. I say it because I believe it's important to know what kind of armor to wear into battle. I think what happens is that people will start to make a change and they're not prepared for the difficulties and chain reaction that change will sometimes set off. Things will start going wrong. They'll say things like, well, you know, if I was supposed to be making this change, it wouldn't be so hard. It wouldn't be so difficult. It's just the nature of change. You have to be ready to go through some kind of turmoil. When I was in my first year of college, I got a new violin teacher. And she decided that she was going to change my bow grip. Change it from here to here. It doesn't look like that big of a deal, but the way you hold the bow is important. It's how you get your tone production, your sound, your volume, and so forth. But still, it wasn't a big change, and I figured, well, you know, I'm pretty coordinated. Give me a couple of months, and I'll be ready to go. Well, that little bit of a change set my bow off kilter, so that I was bowing crooked. And that meant that I had to move my entire arm back in order to straighten out the bow. And that meant that I had to start using an entirely different set of back muscles. And my back became very sore. And because I became so focused on this arm, I started to ignore this arm. My intonation started to suffer, posture, and one by one, step by step, every single aspect of my violin playing went right down the tubes. It was months before I was able to make this change correctly. This is change. Sorry. But you can see how change will set off a chain reaction. You have to be prepared for that. You have to understand that you are going to go through some turmoil. But if you understand the nature, you'll know what that turmoil is. You say, okay, well, I was expecting this. I'll get through it. I'll get to the other side. I was very happy I made that change. I was able to do more with the bow. In fact, I can't think of a single change that I've made that I've regretted. The thing is, you can always go back if you decide that you don't like the change. But I think it's important to make at least one change successfully in your life, because you never want to feel trapped. You never want to feel trapped in life. I'd like to talk about the inner world of beliefs, feelings, attitudes, emotions, because it is the inner world where the seeds of talent are planted. You know, with my students, I find that I can really only teach them so much. I can teach them how to hold the violin. I can teach them how to hold the bow. I can give them the best method books and give them ideas on phrasing and musicality. But for them to do something truly unique and rise above the crowd depends on their inner world. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? Is it fun for them? Is it a game? Do they believe on the deepest level of their being that they can accomplish their goals? These are the issues that truly make the difference. The inner world. You know, everything we do in life, we do for a feeling. We compete because we want to have the feeling of being a winner. We travel because we want to have the feeling of excitement and wonder. Everything we do physically boils down to a simple feeling, and the only reason we do anything at all is to create within ourselves a feeling and an emotion. We live in the inner world, and reality is not about the thing. It's how you perceive the thing. There is nothing beautiful about a sunset. Sunset is not beautiful. Never been one. Not since the beginning of the creation of the planet Earth has there been a beautiful sunset. A sunset is simply a gestalt of scientific elements that come together to create color. That's all it is. Anything beyond that we make up. Scientists could study a sunset for 10,000 years and never find the mathematical equation for beauty in it. It doesn't exist there. It exists in us. The way it makes us feel, the memories that it conjures up, the emotions that it stirs. You could say that we are the beauty part of the sunset, because reality is not about the thing, it's how we perceive the thing. And I promise I am getting to a point. When my wife and I saved up enough money to put a down payment on a house, we decided that we wanted that house to feel like a home. So we furnished it the way we liked, we decorated it the way we liked, so that when we came home, it embraced us. It felt like home. Well, you know, a house is lumber, cement, wood, boards, pipes, shingles, a few other things. That's all it is. Anything beyond that, we make up. We live in the inner world. You may take a hike through a forest and appreciate its beauty and its grandeur and believe that you have a realistic idea about what that forest is. However, a homeless person living in that same forest will see that forest as being cruel, harsh, and unforgiving. Forest is neutral. Its reality is what we breathe into it. We live in the inner world. We've all heard of people who seem to have everything in life: money, fame, admiration, love. And a lot of times we'll hear about these people committing suicide, and you wonder, you know, how can that be? How can someone who seems to have everything in life be so miserable that they'd want to kill themselves? Granted, a lot of times it is drugs or mental illness, but a lot of times it's not. And the reason is, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't feel rich, you're not rich. You can have all the love coming at you that one person could possibly stand, but if you don't feel loved, you're not loved. We live in the inner world, and reality is not about the thing, it's how we perceive the thing. Now, the reason all of this is so important to understand is that it is the inner world that we can change. You can't really change out there. You can't change people, you can't change the laws of nature, but you can change the way you perceive them. And that's the only part of life that we actually live in anyway, the world of perception. How lucky is that? The part that's real is the part that can change. The world around us is not good, bad, cruel, kind, or indifferent. We are. You know, if someone comes up to me and says, you know, North, people are mean and the world is cruel, and I've got proof to support it. It's not my personal belief. It's not my perception. I can show you. Well, I'm not going to argue with that person. That person is right. Absolutely, 100% on the money. Couldn't be more correct. But does that mean that the opposite doesn't also exist? It's not either or. One does not cancel out the other. It's all out there. From the worst, most horrible thing you can imagine to the most wonderful, glorious thing you can imagine, and every level in between. It's all out there. You choose with your perception and your vision what part you want to live in. And that's the part that you will experience the most. So, if you agree with this, why not choose a perception that allows you to be the happiest, that allows you to believe in yourself? Why not choose a perception that allows you to do your work and reach your goals the best and easiest possible way? It's just a matter of knowing what's actually real. And what's actually real is the way we perceive things. That's how you change reality. There's a saying in music, and that saying is, you have to be all things to all music. And what that means is that for me to be a good musician, I can't just decide that I like romantic music and play everything in the romantic style. If I'm playing a Baroque piece of music, I have to play in the Baroque style, which is very light bow, no vibrato, no slides. If I'm playing a romantic piece of music, I have to play in the romantic style, which is heavy into the string bow strokes. Lots of thick vibrato, lots of slides. And so on. To be a good musician, I have to be all things to all music. And I think life works pretty much the same way. I think you have to be all things to all life. If life requires you need to be sensitive and understanding and compassionate, you need to be that. If life requires you need to be strong and assertive and a leader, you need to be that. All things. It's more fun that way. It's more interesting. So basically, what I'm trying to get across with this talk in a nutshell is the importance of having a feeling of inner freedom, having the feeling that there is nothing that you cannot accomplish. And inner freedom is not something that you develop, it's not something that you improve, and it's not something that you learn. Inner freedom is something that exists within us always. It is always there, and it is always complete. It is the feelings and beliefs and attitudes that either keep it confined or release it. In your mind, if you have not worked it out in such a way that you can see that reaching your goal is reasonable and logical, and believe on the deepest level of your being that you can accomplish your goal, there isn't a book or a lecture or an infomercial that's going to make any difference. True success can only happen from the inside out. Thank you very much. I usually end with a little bit of music. It's been great. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have time for music? I think so. Okay. This is going to be the meditation from Thais.